Is the Canon R5 as hot as it sounds, or is it just hot garbage? I guess we'll see.
I mean, that's why, so we're gonna do like a temperature check, and how long does it last? It usually lasts like 30 minutes, so we'll see what we can come up with. But not too shabby. I have another lens in my car I can get to.
Size-wise, super similar to the EOS R.
But it feels better.
But it feels better. The grip is better.
Yep.
It's a hell of a camera. The on-off switch is way nicer.
The scroll wheel.
Damn.
Yeah, this little bit.
Yeah, just
made
that.
It. That made it like this. What is that? Like
it's awful.
Screw
yeah.
that. I don't know if I'm hitting it or not.
Sure. So we're recording this on an EOS R right now.
We're hating on you, EOS R.
We are kind of hating on you, EOS R.
Suck. Compared to your megapixels is good. But
yeah. So what is this? 43?
How much does it cost?
No. Oh. The R5
45 megapixels.
45 megapixel. 20 frames of continuous shooting. 20?
Yeah. Well, electronically, but shutter of 12. But still, that's 3 times faster.
Okay, so we're talking similar speed to the 1DX2.
Right.
Mike brought up a really good point. When you're shooting on the EOS R, when you have your screen in like this and you go over, your EVF trigger goes off and shuts your screen off. But on this guy, when you've got the screen out,
I can't see anything, it's so contrasted, but yes.
So when you...
I can't see it.
Okay, you can take my word for it.
Yeah,
we'll have to show it later when it's dark.
We definitely believe you.
But yeah, that's an incredible feature.
Yeah. Ours had firmware update too. We didn't even have good autofocus right off the bat.
True.
Our shit sucked.
I don't even know if I've done my firmware.
Really?
I might have.
No, it seems pretty snappy.
Yeah. With obvious specs like the 45 megapixel, the Digic-X processor, the 8K 30 frames, and the 5-axis stabilization, the R5 is already stacked up to be a monster. But how well does it actually work, and for how long? We graciously got our hands on the sample R5 from Arts Camera Supply, Donna, and Canon USA. I do have to preface that this is a sample model, so anything going on in this camera is prefaced to change, possibly. We got an update with the EOS R. Could be the same thing for this camera, so we don't know yet. So we've been using the R5 for like the last hour-ish, and it is an absolute beast of a camera. The autofocus is insane, the video is super crispy, and the tracking in video mode is unreal. And obviously the elephant in the room is the overheating on this camera, right? But we do need to talk about it in a true light. As much as I love Canon, as much as I want to stand behind their products, something does need to be said about this in less of a light manner, right? It is an issue.
No, that's for sure. It's 100%. I didn't even know what to do with my camera.
Yeah. So as much as I would love to have the backing of Canon behind this, I don't. I'm not the ambassador that received this product. Thank you, Mike, for letting me hold this through the entire video.
Break the law, man?
Break the law, man?
That's my name, I
That's the Break the Law Man on Instagram?
Hey, man, let's spread the joy. You gotta have fun with camera gear.
Mike, hand me this camera. First reaction with it. Obviously, it's gorgeous. Obviously, I wanted the hype to be real. I was a little surprised when he told me that I was only gonna get maybe, what'd you say, 30 minutes of recording?
25, 30 minutes.
25, 30 minutes on actual recording at 8K or 4K 120.
Yep.
I took the liberty of getting a couple people together. We had some parkour, some BMX. Mike had shot some models with it today, so actual real world shoots, actual things that we would be shooting it with. So with real world use, we got, I started laughing, we got 15-ish minutes using the camera at 4K 120. That was nothing else, that was no 8K, that was 4K 120 at about 75 degrees Fahrenheit local temperature in Milwaukee. And I can't recommend this camera based on that alone. But there is a huge but to this. The only reason I wouldn't recommend that is because I came from a 1DX before this. I came from a 1DX Mark II. I feel like a lot of people are gonna get mad that I'm shaking this camera around, so I'm gonna stop. Coming from the 1DX Mark II, the 1080 120 was incredible. It was great. I could always rely on it. It never ran my cards down. It never even got hot whatsoever. I know that's a different body. I know it's a lot larger, different tech. It's not the same story. But the fact that the R5 doesn't have 120 at 1080 when Canon is obviously very capable of having it in their cameras is very disappointing. We figured out later down the line that you could still use the 4K 24 when your overheating came on, but Canon, come on, I shouldn't have to limp through a job. If I were to use this camera right now on a wedding gig or a model shoot or something paid, if I was in front of a client and they said, hey, we need you to shoot this, I bust this camera out and I get 15 minutes of recording, I wouldn't have a job. I would be done. My client would walk away. And now that that rant's done, I do have to say everything else about this camera is absolutely gorgeous. The way that it feels in your hands and the way that it just effortlessly grabs whatever you need in focus at any given time, effortlessly and silently with the new shutter, speaks so much volume. We grabbed some real world talk while we were shooting, chilling, just doing our thing with people in our group, with people walking by, to see if this was a deal breaker on what was actually going on with this camera. Okay, especially coming from Canon's not lower tier, but like an 80D is still a crop sensor, right? Yeah. So coming from that scene, what are your first takeaways on this?
The autofocus, I tried it even on the R6. It is scarily instant. Like, I didn't even need to think about it and it knew where that person was.
Right.
The single point autofocus on the 80D was really good, but I'm mostly like a manual lens user, and seeing it just do that, I would be honestly okay with it taking over. Yeah. And yeah, the dynamic range, that's insane. Yeah, compared to the 80D, which was like 8 stops or something like
now, for the video overheating issue, is that a no-go for you? Are you done? Like, does that kill the whole thing for you?
So if I had to use this camera, which would probably have been for like run and gun, documentary, or even like weddings, like, I don't know if I'd really use the 8K. If I was doing some sort of cinematic or filmmaking, that would be a huge deal breaker.
So we overheated on just 4K 120.
120?
120. So it does do 4K at 120.
That would be a deal breaker for me. Like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, most cameras these days can shoot 120 4K and have no problems with it.
Well, okay, in what body though? Not a mirrorless.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Or at least
I
not
lied.
a DSLR.
Not in this small a body,
Yes.
but.
What about you? Is it a deal breaker?
Is it a deal breaker for me? I don't know, because I don't shoot at 4K 120 for anything. There's a couple projects I would need it here and there, so I feel like I would have mostly normal settings than to really stretch the limits of the camera. So it's tough to say.
There it is. This is 5 minutes after we overheated the camera. And
Yeah, it feels kind of hot too, like in the grip.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's burning my hands, but I can't stop shooting.
I need the 8K.
I mean, I shoot 6K on the Blackmagic, and I'm like, yeah, dude, this is the greatest thing that man has ever created. Dude, I don't know how to feel about this thing.
I don't either.
Oh, dude, no.
I need that.
No, yeah, shoot AK vlog footage.
Soul.
Yeah, you'd be able to see every pore. Like, I know it was a joke when 4K came out. Like, oh, you can see every pore on your face.
Right.
But like AK, you could really see. Yeah. You can see the cavities in your back, the back of your mouth.
All the people that have been talking about on YouTube are like, I love it, but it sucks at the same time a little bit.
So is that like, yeah, you said that if you turn off overheat control, it turns that off?
Yeah, you
And then
could
it'll
probably
just-
just kill it. You could kill your camera.
I wouldn't recommend that.
$4,000 camera, just poop it out.
I'm really curious, but I won't.
Take it off.
Yeah.
All right, how's it feel?
It feels amazing. I'm not used to the R series, so this feels really, really easy on the hands. I can accurately see it from the screen, and in 120, the tracking is just like spot on. Amazing.
Yo, how long until the thermometer starts flashing?
Yeah, that's what's up.
Is it done?
I guess you're on picture mode now.
Is it done?
Yeah, for a couple hours now.
A couple hours?
He said it's a 2-hour cooldown.
I believe it's 2 hours.
Wait,
Is that the 70 to
no?
200?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing.
So because this is flashing, I'm done.
You're done. Yeah.
See, that's
I can still
ridiculous.
record.
Dude. They're gonna-
I can still record. It just let me record.
2 minutes. It gives you 2 minutes, eh? That's it?
I don't know. Obviously, this camera is super hyped up. Obviously, we all want the best out of this thing. AK sounds unreal. 4K 120, you can't say no to. But realistically, how good is it going to work? We got some buttery 4K B-roll while we could. So let's show you that now. One thing we noticed when we got our temperature warnings was we couldn't shoot at 4K 120, we couldn't shoot at 4K 60, but we were able to shoot at 4K 24 frames. So the camera's still able to be used to some degree, but you're just not going to get that tasty, beautiful slow-mo B-roll that you're probably ideally looking for when you buy this camera. From what I've seen from this camera, I absolutely want to love it. I want to love it so bad, not only as a Canon shooter, but somebody who's completely unbiased from the brand. I want this camera to outweigh all the negatives with the positives. It gets close, I just don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I really want to love it. I think the camera's really getting close to outweighing the negatives with the positives, but I just really hope that Canon can get a grasp on the issues that the camera is having. So when it comes to this camera, if you're a videographer first and a photographer second, I don't know if I can necessarily recommend it to you right now. With firmware, with possible fixes from Canon in the future, something might be able to be done about it. I would just like to see more than 15 to 20 minutes of record time on their higher bitrate stuff. If you're a photographer first and a videographer second, I think that this camera would make an absolute match made in heaven if you only need to do video intermittently. Canon, let's be real, you and me. I love you to death. I want this thing to be great. I want the hype to be real, but you gotta fulfill those big grandiose numbers of 8K and 120 without all the overheat. I wanna love the product. I wanna stand behind you guys like I have done so in the past. I love you to death and I wanna keep that relationship going. So, Canon, I love you, but right now I just don't know how to feel about our relationship, and I think we should maybe see other people for a bit. Let's take a break, okay? Okay, thank you.